Good evening. Tonight, we're talking about something that's grown so large, so mind-bogglingly immense, it makes a blue whale look like a goldfish cracker. I'm talking, of course, about the US national debt. It's a number with so many zeros it looks like a typo, a figure that politicians love to scream about during election years, before promptly adding to it the moment they're in office. It's the ultimate political hot potato, tossed back and forth with dire warnings, yet it just keeps getting hotter and, well, more potatoey. So, can America really eliminate its debt? Can this colossal, ever-expanding financial black hole actually be filled? It sounds impossible, like trying to teach a cat to file its own taxes or getting Congress to agree on the color of the sky. The very idea seems like a fantasy, a fairy tale you tell a nervous economist to help them sleep at night. But what if it wasn't? What if there was a path, however difficult and ridiculously long, to actually getting this thing under control? Tonight, we're going to put on our hard hats, grab a calculator, and dive headfirst into the fiscal abyss. We'll explore the monumental, almost Herculean tasks America would have to undertake to even dream of becoming debt-free. We're not just talking about skipping a few lattes, we're talking about a complete national overhaul. So buckle up, because this is going to be a long, bumpy, and frankly terrifying ride into the heart of America's balance sheet. First up on our Sisyphean to-do list, rebuilding America's manufacturing base. For decades, the prevailing wisdom was to ship jobs overseas where labor was cheaper. The result? We got cheaper t-shirts and electronics, but our industrial heartland got, for lack of a better term, absolutely gutted. Entire towns that once thrived on the hum of factories fell silent, replaced by the sad, rust-colored ghosts of American industry. To even begin to climb out of this debt hole, we need to make things here again. And I don't just mean artisanal birdhouses sold on Etsy, I mean the big stuff. This isn't about just waving a magic wand and shouting, "Bring the jobs back." It's a colossal undertaking that economists call reshoring, which sounds less like an economic policy and more like what you do after your boat capsizes. It would require a fundamental shift in our economic strategy. Think massive tax incentives, not just little breaks, but golden ticket-level temptations for companies to build their factories on American soil, instead of in a country where worker safety regulations are more of a gentle suggestion. We're talking about transforming swaths of land into gleaming, state-of-the-art manufacturing hubs. This isn't your grandfather's factory, with sparks flying and foremen yelling over the din. This is the future, a landscape dominated by automation and robotics. The factory worker of tomorrow won't be pulling a lever, they'll be programming the robot that pulls the lever, which is a significantly more complex job that requires a whole new set of skills. Which of course creates another problem we'll have to solve. So you've convinced a company to build a billion-dollar factory in, say, Ohio. Fantastic. Now who is going to work there? You can't just take someone who's been working in a service job and plop them in front of a complex robotics control panel. This requires a nationwide push for upskilling the workforce. We're talking about a massive investment in vocational schools, technical colleges, and apprenticeship programs designed specifically for the jobs of the 21st century. It's a domino effect. To bring back manufacturing, you need automation. To have automation, you need a highly skilled workforce. To get that workforce, you need to fundamentally overhaul your education and training systems. Each step is a monumental challenge in itself. It's not just about creating jobs, it's about creating the right jobs and ensuring we have the people who can actually do them. This isn't a quick fix, it's the long, hard, and expensive first step. The goal here is simple, even if the execution is anything but. A robust manufacturing sector means more high-paying jobs, which means more people paying taxes. It means a stronger domestic supply chain, so we're not held hostage by global disruptions. It means we export more and import less, helping to fix our lopsided trade deficit. It's about building a self-reliant economic engine that can power the nation and just maybe start chipping away at that mountain of debt. Alright, next up, energy. For as long as anyone can remember, America's energy policy has been intrinsically linked to foreign policy, which is a polite way of saying we've spent an astronomical amount of time, money, and political capital worrying about countries half a world away just to keep the gas flowing. This reliance on foreign oil isn't just a national security headache, it's a massive drain on our economy. Every barrel of oil we import is money flowing out of the country, worsening our trade deficit and making our debt problem even bigger. So the logical step is energy independence. The ability to power ourselves without having to make nice with regimes we'd rather not. This isn't a new idea, of course. Politicians have been paying lip service to it for decades. But achieving it would do more than just bolster national security. Imagine the sheer number of jobs created by a full-scale domestic energy boom. From engineers and geologists to construction workers and technicians, it would be a massive employment engine, putting more people to work and, you guessed it, increasing tax revenues. Now, we could achieve a degree of independence by simply doubling down on fossil fuels, drilling and fracking our way to self-sufficiency, and for a while that might even work. But that's like fixing a leaky roof by redirecting the water into your basement. You've solved one problem by creating a much bigger one down the line. The long-term costs of climate change, from extreme weather events to public health crises, would dwarf any short-term economic gains, adding untold trillions to our future liabilities. The real, sustainable path to energy independence lies in green technology. This is where things get truly transformative. We're talking about an all-out Apollo program-level investment in renewable energy. Think vast solar farms stretching across the desert, their panels glistening like a mechanical ocean. Picture thousands of wind turbines spinning gracefully off our coasts, harvesting the power of the wind. This isn't just about being environmentally conscious, it's about cornering the market on the next great global industry. This means pouring money into research and development. We need better batteries to store energy when the sun isn't shining or the wind isn't blowing. We need a smarter, more resilient electrical grid to handle the fluctuating input from renewables. We need to explore next-generation nuclear power, geothermal energy, and hydrogen fuel cells. It's about fostering innovation, creating patents, and then building the factories, right here in America, to manufacture and export that technology to the rest of the world. Becoming a green energy superpower isn't just an environmental goal. It's a powerful economic strategy. It creates high-tech manufacturing jobs, reduces our trade deficit by eliminating the need for foreign oil, and generates new export revenue as the world inevitably transitions to clean energy. It's a way to secure our future, both environmentally and fiscally. It's a massive, expensive, long-term bet, but it's one that could pay off handsomely, turning an energy vulnerability into a core economic strength. So, we have new factories and a green energy sector, fantastic. But who precisely is going to design the quantum computers, program the robots, and maintain the wind turbines? Our current education system, frankly, is not up to the task. It's a system designed for a 20th century economy, churning out graduates who are often saddled with debt and lack the specific practical skills needed for the jobs we've just created. You can't fix a 21st century economy with a 1950s education model. It's like trying to stream Netflix on a rotary phone. The skills gap is not some abstract economic concept, it's a chasm. On one side, you have millions of unfilled, high-paying jobs in tech, healthcare, and advanced manufacturing. On the other, you have millions of unemployed or underemployed people who simply weren't trained for those roles. To bridge this gap, we need a radical rethinking of our national priorities, starting with how we view education beyond high school. The four-year university degree has been held up as the only path to success, and that's just not true. We need to elevate community colleges and vocational training from a perceived Plan B to a respected and robust Plan A. These institutions are nimble, affordable, and perfectly positioned to partner with local industries to create tailored programs that feed directly into high-demand jobs. Imagine a system where a student can get a 2-year degree in robotics maintenance or cybersecurity, graduate with little to no debt, and walk into a job that pays $70,000 a year. That should be the norm, not the exception. This means a massive infusion of federal and state funding into these programs. We need to equip them with the latest technology, the same machine students will be using in the workplace. We need to attract top instructors from the industry and pay them competitive salaries. It also means a cultural shift, where becoming a skilled electrician, a certified welder, or a medical technician is seen as just as valuable and successful as becoming a lawyer or a consultant. At the same time, we have to double down on STEM education, science, technology, engineering, and math, from kindergarten onwards. We can't wait until college to get kids interested in these fields. It needs to be integrated into the core curriculum in engaging and inspiring ways. We need more computer science classes, more robotics clubs, more science fairs that don't just involve a baking soda volcano. We need to cultivate a generation of innovators and problem solvers. Ultimately, fixing education is the foundational investment. A better educated, more highly skilled workforce is more productive, more innovative, and earns higher wages. Higher wages mean a larger tax base and less reliance on social safety nets. It creates a virtuous cycle that strengthens the economy from the ground up. Without a workforce that's future-ready, all our other plans for manufacturing and green energy are just expensive pipe dreams. This isn't just about schools, it's about building the human capital that will power our economic recovery. Now for the part of the conversation that makes everyone exquisitely uncomfortable: cutting spending. For politicians, promising to cut wasteful spending is a classic campaign trail hit. It's right up there with kissing babies and pretending to enjoy eating a corn dog at a state fair. They talk about trimming the fat and eliminating fraud, waste, and abuse. It sounds so simple, so surgical. But the reality is that the federal budget isn't a juicy steak you can neatly trim. It's a terrifying, gelatinous blob of interconnected programs, and cutting it is a messy, politically radioactive affair. Let's start with the low-hanging fruit, or what everyone is the low-hanging fruit. This would involve a full, top-to-bottom audit of every single federal agency. Think of it as the world's most soul-crushing episode of Hoarders. You'd send in armies of accountants to comb through the Pentagon's budget to figure out why they're still paying for a filing system from 1973, or why the Department of Agriculture is funding a study on the migratory patterns of angry squirrels. There is, without a doubt, genuine waste to be found in a multi-trillion-dollar enterprise. The problem is, this waste is often a tiny sliver of the overall budget. Sure, you might save a few $100 million by eliminating redundant programs or overpriced contracts, and you absolutely should. But that's like trying to bail out the Titanic with a teaspoon. It's a rounding error when you're facing a $34 trillion debt. The real money, the gigantic, politically untouchable third rail of American politics, is in entitlement programs. I'm talking about Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. These three programs alone make up a colossal portion of federal spending, and their costs are projected to explode as the baby boomer generation continues to retire. Merely suggesting reforms to these programs is considered political suicide. Any politician who dares to whisper the words "raise the retirement age" or means testing benefits is immediately accused of wanting to push grandma off a cliff. The attack ads practically write themselves. But if we are serious, truly genuinely serious, about the debt, a conversation about reforming these programs is unavoidable. This doesn't have to mean cruel cuts. It could mean gradually increasing the retirement age for younger workers by a few years to reflect longer life expectancies. It could mean adjusting the formula for cost of living increases. It could involve asking wealthier retirees to pay more for their Medicare premiums. These are not easy choices, and they would be deeply unpopular. This is the brutal math of debt reduction. You can't solve the problem by just cutting the programs you don't like. The numbers are too big. It requires a level of political courage and bipartisan cooperation that seems to have gone extinct sometime around the late Cretaceous period. It means making unpopular decisions that won't pay political dividends for decades. It's about choosing long-term fiscal solvency over short-term electoral survival, and that, in Washington, is the hardest choice of all. If cutting spending is one side of the coin, the other, equally contentious side is raising revenue. And that means we have to talk about taxes. Just saying the word taxes is enough to make half the country break out in hives. It's a topic so toxic, it makes nuclear waste look like a refreshing sports drink. The debate is always framed as a binary choice. Either you raise taxes on hard-working middle-class families, or you're a fiscal socialist. But the reality, as always, is far more complex. The American tax code is a monstrosity. It's a labyrinthine beast of loopholes, deductions, credits, and exemptions that stretches over thousands of pages. It's so complicated that it's created an entire industry of accountants and lawyers whose sole job is to help the very wealthy navigate its corridors to pay as little as legally possible. Simplifying this behemoth is a critical first step. A simpler, fairer code with fewer loopholes would not only make filing taxes less of a national nightmare, but could also increase revenue without even touching the rates. Now let's talk about who should be paying more. For decades, the tax burden on the wealthiest Americans and the largest corporations has steadily decreased. The argument has always been that lower taxes on the rich will trickle down and benefit everyone. But after 40 years of this experiment, it seems the only thing that has trickled down is the champagne from the upstairs party. Meanwhile, corporate profits have soared, and wealth inequality has reached levels not seen since the Gilded Age. Ensuring that the wealthy and large corporations pay their fair share is not about punishing success, it's about restoring balance. This could mean raising the top marginal income tax rate. It could mean increasing the capital gains tax so that income from wealth is taxed at the same rate as income from work. It could mean implementing a higher, more effective corporate tax rate and, crucially, closing the offshore loopholes that allow multinational companies to stash their profits in tax havens like the Cayman Islands, which is less a country and more a filing cabinet with a beach. Think about it. Some of the most profitable companies in the world have, in some years, paid literally $0 in federal income taxes. Zero. That's less than you paid. That's less than your teenage nephew paid on his summer job lifeguarding. That is, to put it mildly, fundamentally broken. A system where a nurse or a teacher pays a higher effective tax rate than a billion-dollar corporation is not a sustainable or fair system. This isn't a magic bullet. Tax reform alone won't eliminate the debt, but it's an absolutely essential piece of the puzzle. Increasing federal revenue by ensuring the most fortunate among us contribute proportionally would provide the funds needed for those investments in infrastructure, education, and energy we've been talking about. It would reduce the pressure to make draconian cuts to essential services. It's about making the system work for everyone, not just for those who can afford the best tax attorneys. Okay, let's wade into another political minefield: immigration. The conversation around immigration in America is almost always loud, angry, and spectacularly unhelpful. It's dominated by images of walls and desperate people, framed as a crisis at the border. And while border security is a legitimate issue that needs to be addressed, this hyper-focus completely misses the other side of the immigration story: its immense potential as a powerful engine for economic growth. Immigrants, particularly skilled ones, are not a drain on the economy. They are a massive net positive. They start businesses at a much higher rate than native-born citizens. They are disproportionately represented among Nobel Prize winners, patent holders, and founders of Fortune 500 companies. They bring new ideas, new energy, and a powerful drive to succeed. To put it simply, a smart immigration policy isn't just about compassion, it's about strategic recruitment of talent for Team America. So, what would a purposeful, economically driven immigration reform look like? It would mean implementing a merit-based system, similar to what countries like Canada and Australia have. This doesn't mean closing the door to refugees or family members, but it does mean creating a clear, efficient pathway for the people our economy needs most. We would prioritize immigrants with skills in high-demand fields like software engineering, medicine, advanced manufacturing, and renewable energy. Imagine a system where a brilliant AI researcher from India or a top biochemist from Nigeria could get a visa in months, not years. Imagine actively recruiting the world's best and brightest to come and build their careers and their futures here. This would be a game changer for our competitiveness. It would fill critical gaps in our labor market, drive innovation, and prevent American companies from having to move their R&D departments overseas just to find the talent they need. This influx of skilled workers would also have a direct, positive impact on our debt problem. High-skilled immigrants tend to earn high wages, which means they pay a significant amount in taxes over their lifetimes. They contribute far more to the public coffers than they consume in social services. They are, in fiscal terms, a fantastic investment. Growing the population with highly productive, tax-paying workers is one of the most effective ways to grow the tax base without raising tax rates. Of course, this needs to be paired with a solution for the millions of undocumented immigrants already living and working in the shadows. Providing a pathway to legal status for those who have been here for years, working and contributing to our communities, would bring them into the formal economy. They would pay income taxes, Social Security, and Medicare, further expanding the tax base and adding billions in revenue. A smart, comprehensive immigration reform strengthens our workforce, boosts innovation, and directly helps our bottom line. It's a win-win-win. Let's talk about something we can all agree on. American infrastructure is, in many places, crumbling. Our roads are a constellation of potholes, our bridges are aging, our water pipes are bursting, and honestly, our internet speeds can be embarrassingly slow. It's not just an inconvenience that ruins your commute, it's a massive hidden tax on our entire economy. Every minute a truck is stuck in traffic, every time a power grid fails, every time a factory has to shut down due to a water main break, we lose productivity and money. Investing in infrastructure is one of the most direct and effective ways a government can stimulate the economy. It's not some abstract financial wizardry, it's profoundly tangible. You are literally paying people to build things: roads, bridges, ports, high-speed rail, a modernized electrical grid, and universal broadband internet. These are not make-work projects, they are fundamental investments in the skeleton of our economy. A strong skeleton supports a healthy body. The job creation would be immediate and widespread. You'd need construction workers, electricians, plumbers, engineers, architects, and urban planners. You'd need people working in the steel mills, cement plants, and factories that produce all the raw materials. These are good-paying jobs that can't be outsourced. You can't ask someone in another country to repave I-95 for you. This creates a powerful ripple effect, as these workers then spend their paychecks at local businesses, stimulating the economy from the ground up. But the short-term job boost is only half the story. The long-term benefits are even more significant. Modern infrastructure makes businesses more efficient. If goods can move from port to warehouse to store more quickly and cheaply, that lowers the cost of doing business for everyone. A reliable, high-capacity power grid prevents costly blackouts. Universal high-speed internet opens up economic opportunities for rural communities, allowing for remote work, distance learning, and new e-commerce businesses to flourish. Think about the global competition. Countries like China are pouring trillions into building futuristic cities, bullet trains, and massive ports. They understand that world-class infrastructure is a prerequisite for being a 21st century economic superpower. For America to compete, we can't be content with patching up a system that was largely designed and built 70 years ago. We need to leap forward. This is, of course, incredibly expensive. A full-scale modernization of American infrastructure would cost trillions of dollars, which sounds counterintuitive when you're trying to reduce debt, but it's a classic case of you have to spend money to make money. The long-term return on investment in the form of increased productivity, enhanced competitiveness, and a larger, more efficient economy would far outweigh the initial cost. It's not spending, it's an investment in our future ability to generate wealth and ultimately pay down our debts. For much of the 20th century, America wasn't just the world's biggest economy, it was the world's indispensable nation. We helped write the rules of global trade and finance, and our leadership, while not always perfect, provided a certain level of stability. In recent years, however, that trust has eroded. We've engaged in trade wars, abandoned international agreements, and sent confusing, contradictory signals to our allies. This has not only damaged our reputation but has also hurt us economically. To regain our footing and tackle our debt, we need to restore that global trust and re-engage with the world, not as a bully, but as a reliable partner. This starts with trade. We need to move beyond the simplistic all trade is bad or all trade is good rhetoric and focus on building smart, fair trade deals. The goal isn't just about getting cheaper goods, it's about opening up new markets for American products and services. We need to be selling our high-tech goods, our green energy technology, and our agricultural products to the 95% of the world's consumers who live outside our borders. This means rejoining and strengthening international partnerships. It means working with our allies to set high standards for labor, environmental protection, and intellectual property rights, creating a level playing field so our businesses aren't competing with countries that use child labor or steal our patents. When we lead a coalition of like-minded democracies, we can collectively push back against unfair trade practices from economic rivals like China, which is far more effective than going it alone. A strong network of global alliances also strengthens the US dollar. The dollar's status as the world's primary reserve currency is a massive, often overlooked economic advantage. It means countries all over the world need to hold dollars, which creates a constant demand for our currency and our government bonds. This allows us to borrow money more cheaply than anyone else. If global trust in America's stability and leadership falters and countries start looking for alternatives to the dollar, our borrowing costs could skyrocket, making our debt problem infinitely worse. Restoring our global standing also has direct security and economic benefits. Strong alliances mean shared security burdens. When our allies are stable and prosperous, it creates a more secure world, reducing the need for costly American military interventions. It also fosters the geopolitical stability that is essential for global commerce to thrive. Businesses are more likely to make long-term investments when they're not worried about a sudden trade war or geopolitical crisis. In essence, A smart foreign policy is a smart economic policy. By being a predictable, trustworthy, and engaged leader on the world stage, we create a more favorable environment for American businesses to prosper. We open markets, strengthen the dollar, and build the partnerships needed to tackle global challenges. It's about rebuilding our reputation not just for our pride, but for our pocketbook. A respected America is a more prosperous America, and a more prosperous America is one that can actually afford to pay its bills. So after all that, after rebuilding our entire industrial base, revolutionizing our energy sector, overhauling education, auditing the government, reforming taxes, fixing immigration, modernizing infrastructure, and restoring global trust, we arrive at the final question: can America really eliminate its debt? The honest answer is, probably not. At least not in the sense of getting the number down to zero. That number is just too astronomically large. It's like asking if you can drink the entire ocean. It's not a realistic goal. A more realistic, though still incredibly difficult goal, is to reduce the debt as a percentage of our gross domestic product. This is the metric that most economists actually care about. It's a measure of our ability to carry and service our debt. If your economy is growing faster than your debt, the burden becomes more manageable over time. It's like if you owe $100,000, which is terrifying if you make $30,000 a year, but much less so if you make $300,000 a year. The goal is to grow the economy's income. Achieving even this will require a level of sustained discipline and political will that America has not demonstrated in generations. This isn't a 4-year plan that a single president can implement. This is a 30 or 40-year project that would have to survive multiple changes in leadership in both the White House and Congress. It would require Democrats and Republicans to stop using the debt as a political weapon and start treating it as a shared national crisis. It would mean making a series of tough, often unpopular choices year after year. It means one Congress can't pass a massive tax cut without paying for it, and the next Congress can't create a huge new spending program without a dedicated revenue stream. It requires a long-term budget framework that both parties agree to and, more importantly, stick to. It means a culture change in Washington, from one of short-term political gain to one of long-term fiscal responsibility. The consequences of failing to act are dire. If our debt-to-GDP ratio continues to spiral upwards, we risk a true fiscal crisis. It could trigger soaring inflation, skyrocketing interest rates, and a collapse in the value of the dollar. A crisis like that would make the 2008 financial meltdown look like a minor hiccup. It would decimate the savings of millions of Americans, cripple our government's ability to function, and permanently damage our standing in the world. So while eliminating the debt entirely might be a fantasy, controlling it is a necessity. The path we've outlined, a comprehensive all-of-the-above approach that tackles every facet of the American economy, is monumentally difficult. Each step is a Herculean task on its own. But the alternative, doing nothing and simply drifting towards the waterfall, is far, far worse. The choices are hard, but they are choices we have to make, not for us, but for the future generations who will inherit the bill. So there you have it. Fixing America's debt isn't about one simple trick. It's about doing 9 incredibly difficult, politically toxic things all at once and keeping it up for about half a century. It's less of a plan and more of a national penance. It requires our politicians to exhibit the long-term thinking of a sequoia tree and the bipartisan courage of a honey badger. 2 qualities that are, let's be honest, in critically short supply in Washington. The path forward is clear, but it's paved with unpopular choices and delayed gratification. The scary thing is, every single one of those steps is essential. You can't just pick one. You can't just raise taxes on the rich and call it a day, any more than you can fix a sinking ship by only patching one hole. You have to rebuild the engine, chart a new course, and get the crew to stop drilling more holes in the hull for fun. It requires a fundamental nationwide commitment to the idea that our collective future is more important than our individual, short-term political wins. And that, ultimately, is the real challenge. It's not economic, it's psychological. It's about whether we, as a country, still have the capacity to do big, hard things together. We've done it before. We've won wars. We've gone to the moon. We've built the internet. The question is, can we summon that same spirit of shared purpose to fix our own balance sheet? I certainly hope so. Because if we can't, that $34 trillion elephant in the room is going to sit on us. And trust me, That is not a pretty sight. Good night.